Hello and welcome back to the Control Loop. In the previous episode we have mapped the surface area of quantum attacks on crypto. Today we're going to go into the uncomfortable part, why just the upgrade later is not a valid plan. So right now the crypto market is roughly $3 trillion, with Bitcoin accounting of about half of that, Ethereum about 360 billion, stablecoins sitting about 300 billions, DeFi alone being 120 billions TVL. But now to the part that people skip. The exposure is not just hypothetical. There is a published analysis that's estimating over 4 million Bitcoin may already be in patterns that are considered quantum vulnerable, like old pay-to-public key schemes, plus the reuse patterns that expose public keys. At today's price of Bitcoin, that is hundreds of billions sitting behind already exposed assumptions. So when people say this and this chain will just upgrade to post-quantum signatures later, the question is actually a different one. Can we coordinate the largest key migration in financial history before the attackers get a quiet head start? So to someone listening and saying, fine, we'll just soft fork into post-quantum signatures parse, why is that not enough? Can you walk us through?
Yeah, Daria, exactly. I think this is a very loosely used term that fine, we'll just fork in the post-quantum signatures and it will be done. So I'm here to, kind of guide the listeners and the users of crypto of tomorrow of what exactly, why is it, basically dangerous and strictly, I would say people should just stay away from this. So because swapping math is not the hard part, Daria. The migration is the hardest part. And the migration is where the value gets stranded, stolen, and sacrificed. So here are, a couple of realities which I will share. The post-quantum is not free. Every major protocol leader is saying that it is plainly post-quantum can be X slower and 10x bulkier than their existing, the throughput. So basically cutting a zero of throughputs, if the throughput is 100, it will become 10. That is the 10 TPS. That is the strength of these new signatures. So if they adopt that new signatures scheme, they basically are going from say 100 TPS to 10 TPS. In today's time where we are looking at more TPS and more better UX from the chains, this is basically just pushing us back. Now, the second reality is that the fork does not rotate keys. People do rotate. So a protocol can change rules. It cannot force the world to execute the perfect key rotation. The real blockers are the hardware wallet setup, update cycle, exchange and custodians, which are rolling signing systems through compliance and change control, multi-sig quorum coordination, bridge admin key migration, lost key that can never migrate. Partial adoption creates a target map. Imagine during the transition, the ecosystem becomes a patchwork. Some upgraded, some didn't. Some froze, some didn't. Attackers do not need everyone. They only need the lagging high value keys. So upgrade later does not mean a safer later alternative. It means that we will do the highest stakes cryptographic migration ever under adversarial pressure with uneven adoption and a long tail that cannot move. So essentially, there are, couple of problems here which we have clearly highlighted, and hence I don't see, upgrade later as the best path forward.
And by high value keys, you are maybe referring to like Satoshi's keys, at least on Bitcoin, and things like that, that are probably not going to be migrated. Why exactly is it like technically, legally, for legacy chains to become quantum proof? So you've been talking about wallets and a lot of other things, but what about today's biggest chains? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, definitely, Daria. I think this has been most, undiscussed topics, and chains have not been named. So I'll take the names here, and we'll address the problems. What will happen with the chains when they try to become quantum safe? So because Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Polygon, Cardano, and most major ecosystems build on them, including Arbitrum, Optimism, Base, and other L2 stacks, are boxed in by two constraints. One is performance economics, and the second is installed. So the performance cost is structural. If you push to a post-quantum too early, you can end up effectively chopping from your throughput by the order of magnitude, which becomes higher fees, worse UX, and stronger centralization. pressure. That 10x slower and 10x larger trade-off has been stated explicitly in open by these chains in their discussions. Second, the systems were tuned for small and fast signatures. So, propagation assumptions, gas schedules, client optimization, hardware expectations, wallet UX were built around those today's cryptography. Make signatures heavier and verification slower, and the entire system behavior changes a lot under this load. So what I'm trying to say here is make the signatures now heavier, which are the post quantum signatures, and then the verification also becomes slower, then the entire systemic behavior changes under this load. So it's not something that okay, it will just happen and will not shake the world. It will shake the core of the blockchain industry. Now, the third and the most critical point is the installed base in is the wall. So essentially, when I say installed base is like you are not upgrading Daria a chain, you are coordinating millions of wallets, multiple client stacks, exchanges and custodians, hardware devices, institutional signing workflows, bridges and governance multisigs. Some cannot migrate quickly, some will not migrate, and some will never migrate. So, because the keys are already lost. So, that guarantees a long tail of exposed values even when the migration is done. The fourth critical point here, Daria, is the weakest link security dominates. So even if the L1 migrates, for the suppose that happens, the attack service remains where authority and the money is concentrated. For example, bridge controls, multi-sig, custody workflows, validator key material. Attackers go where there is payout. So yes, legacy chains can attempt a post-quantum transition. The honest point is, doing it safely is extremely hard, and the migration window is exactly where the attackers will win and will be winning in the coming future.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's not as easy to upgrade, and even if you do, it comes with its own trade-offs. But you've been saying a lot like attackers. How does an attack would actually work? What's an realistic attack path for this? Because we've heard people of great stature like Adam Back saying that a cryptographically relevant quantum computer is still many, many years in the making and maybe never. Can you just do the playbook of an attack without any sci-fi?
So yeah, Daria, I want to put it plain, and because this section was very important for the users and the listeners to understand that you don't actually need the complete sci-fi, planet scale custom machine to kind of start doing these attacks. So I'll start, with this playbook. So the phase one of Daria of the playbook is a limited private capability appears, and not breaking everything, breaking some key classes reliably under certain conditions at a useful cadence. Phase 2. Silence is the strategy. You do not announce it. Announcing triggers panic, kills liquidity, and destroy your own exit. This is something of which we are seeing that what happened after October 10, the liquidity has completely vanished and the market has not been able to recover, and assets have lost a lot of prices. So the panic is something that everybody would want to avoid in these situations, especially the attackers. Phase 3. Target selection is obvious. Go where the payoff is asymmetric and coordination is low. Governance multisigs, bridge admin paths, exchange signing workflows, validator key material with outsized influence, any wallet patterns where public keys are already exposed at rest. Phase 4. Camouflage inside existing failure modes. It will be called exploit, leak, multisig failure, bridge hack, inside job, nation state, not quantum. It blends into the crypto normal noise. We have had a lot of this noise, and I don't think so people are paying attention to this. Phase 5. Forced migration under fear. Eventually, the pattern stops fitting normal explanations. Then the upgrade happens under panic, liquidity fragments, policies diverge, versions fork, and coordination breaks. The brutal point is this: you do not recognize the start, you will recognize it later inside the migration. So, what we are trying to say is that you will never be able to predict when the quantum attack is starting, when it has already started. So, please, the prevention would be the best I would say the strategy here, rather than waiting for your chains and wallets to migrate.
I see. But today, is it actually possible to build an already quantum aware protocol if, again, you would be starting Bitcoin today? What are the primitives in the text that you could use to build something like that? And what of all of that we're actually using at EternaX?
Definitely, Daria, this two-part series has brought us to this, this junction is where we had promised our listeners that we will be explaining how we have solved and how we have become a quantum aware chain. So, as a quantum aware chain, EternaX, we treat security as a staged engineering program, not a last minute fork. We harden the real trust anchors. One is TEEs, second is validators, third is wallets, in that order. So I'll explain first how we are solving for the TEEs. The mitigation for the TE keys and the attestation, we start with key rotation to reduce the long-lived key exposures in the TEE, and then move to the post-quantum signatures to safeguard TE attestations, because attestation is a trust anchor for us. If it relies on forever keys, it becomes a future signal point of failure. So the privacy that we are providing at EternaX is protected, is quantum proof. That is what we are saying here. The second is mitigation at the level of validators. The validators, we have two-pronged complementary paths here. The validators will be using post-quantum signatures. And also, we are looking at a signature-free blockchain consensus at our end. Both have their own overheads, but we are optimized for the speed, the UX, the privacy. So we have to we are kind of looking at much more broader ideas here, and we are thinking of research and implementation of the signature free blockchain consensus as well. The third is the mitigations at the wallet level. So the first step that we use is that there is hash of public keys as the wallet address instead of exposing the public key itself by default. So we do not, I say repeat again, we never ever disclose the public keys to anybody. It is the hash of the public keys that is disclosed, and that hash cannot be broken post quantum. So that is the three-pronged approach that we have taken, and that is how we are solving and becoming a post-quantum chain. So the thesis is very simple. Legacy chains pay a performance and coordination tax to retrofit post-quantum. EternaX is built for it from day one. So we keep up the speed, we keep up the UX, we keep up the privacy while upgrading cryptography as the threat curve steepens. And importantly, post-quantum cryptography is no longer hypothetical. NIST has already released the post-quantum standards. So whoever or whichever projects your coins are, be it Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, whatever those chains are, wherever you are operating your DeFi, wherever you are operating your perps, you need to ask yourself this one question: that what if there is a quantum attack and I lose all my assets? If you are ready to wait for that future, be my guest. Please stay on those projects. But if you want to do something about it, then please understand the concept that prevention is much better than thinking about or upgrading later. So especially that is where EternaX is built. We are preventive first. The design is preventive first. Quantum may come in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, does not matter for us, but we are prepared for it. But for other chains, especially for be it Solana, Ethereum, you still have to think about these questions.
Well, thank you, Bars, for this very informative dive into what is the technology actually behind upgrading and what is the consequences in practice. So to recap it to our today's listeners, so the risk is not just Bitcoin, it's the entire crypto stack with still roughly 3 trillion in the surface area. Upgrade later is not a valid plan because migration is the failure mode and adoption will not be even. Legacy ecosystems including Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Polygon, every major L2 stack like Arbitrum and Optimism will face a brutal retrofit trade-off. The security upgrades to become post-quantum can mean real throughput and fee shocks. The realistic attacks are actually very quiet, key by key, coin by coin, blamed on normal exploits just leaking out of the market until it can be too late. So at EternaX, we are building for post-quantum survivability from day one, staging hardening across keys, validators, as wallets. This was the control loop. Stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you, Bars.
Thank you.